The morning sun rose slowly over the endless wheat fields of New Terra, painting the sky with soft golds and pale blues. The air was clean, untouched, the kind of atmosphere Earth hadn't known for centuries. Jake Sullivan walked the perimeter of the colony as he always did at dawn. His boots brushed against tall grain that swayed gently in the cool breeze, almost ready for harvest. From his vantage point on a small hill, he looked back at the settlement, 50,000 souls who had carved a life out of a new world over the past 15 years. White buildings with blue roofs clustered around a central plaza. Children's laughter carried from the park. Hydroponic farms thrummed with quiet industry. It was ordered, balanced, and alive. Jake, once a tired bureaucrat from Earth, now served as the colony's administrator. The sight always filled him with pride. This is what humanity could be, he thought. A society without pollution, without overcrowding, without the endless noise of Earth. A second chance among the stars. Beautiful morning, came a familiar voice. Lisa Morgan joined him on the hill, her medical bag slung across her shoulder. She had been New Terra's chief medical officer since the early days, when the colony numbered only 1,000. Her presence was constant, like the rising sun itself. "The Henderson baby is due today," she said with a tired smile. "That will make number 300 this year alone." Jake chuckled, warmth flickering in his chest. 300 new lives. It makes you think about the future they'll have here. "Better than Earth," Lisa replied softly. "Here, they can grow up free. No smog, no crime, no hunger. Just possibility." They walked together down the slope toward the heart of the colony. People were beginning their day, engineers cycling up the power plant, farmers tending crops, teachers corralling students toward school. Everything moved with a rhythm that felt natural, inevitable. Amy Carter was already at the communications hub, her hands dancing across the console. She had monitored space traffic for a decade, maintaining the fragile lifeline between New Terra and Earth. Most days were routine, supply ship schedules, weather updates, harvest reports. At the security office, Peter Kane leaned out of the window as Jake passed. Peter, once a soldier, now commanded a security force of 200 volunteers. But on New Terra, security mostly meant managing occasional wildlife incidents. The most dangerous local animals were lumbering herbivores that sometimes wandered into farmland. "Morning, Administrator," Peter called with a mock salute. "Quiet night, as usual. Though Joey Martinez swears he saw strange lights near Sector 7. Probably just a meteor shower." Meteor showers were common here. The planet's orbit brought it close to an asteroid belt, scattering the sky with fire several times a year. Colonists gathered to watch them like fireworks. No one ever considered them a threat. Jake continued his rounds. Steve Bailey, head of agriculture, supervised the autonomous harvesters. Their machines hummed through golden fields, guided by algorithms Steve himself had refined. He grinned when Jake asked about the season. 30% increase over last year, Steve said proudly. "The new nutrient mixture is perfect. We'll be able to export even more food back to Earth." Everything worked. Everything was in balance. New Terra wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. For 15 years, the colony had been blessed with stability, breathable air, fertile soil, calm weather. Even the nearest star systems were empty, silent. It was as close to paradise as humanity had found. But paradise is fragile. By midday, Jake's calm routine was interrupted. His comm unit buzzed with Amy Carter's voice, tight and uncertain. "Administrator Sullivan, could you come to the communications center? I'm picking up something unusual." Inside the hub, Amy's eyes were fixed on a glowing display. Dots moved across the edge of the system, far beyond New Terra's orbit. "They're too big to be asteroids," she explained, pointing at the screen. "And they're moving in formation. Could be ships." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Ships in this system were never a surprise. Supply routes were carefully scheduled months in advance. Every arrival was documented, tracked, and cleared. "Are they broadcasting identification?" Jake asked. Amy shook her head. "Nothing. They're not responding to hails, not on any known frequencies." The dots glowed steady and purposeful. "Artificial. Intelligent. How many?" "At least 12, Amy whispered. "Possibly more. And, they're coming this way." Jake forced his voice to remain calm. "Alert Peter. Security on standby, precaution only. No panic." Amy nodded, though her hands trembled slightly as she transmitted the order. Jake stared at the screen. The colony had known shortages, accidents, the occasional brush with disaster. But nothing like this. Nothing that reached in from the cold dark of space. He tried to convince himself there was an explanation. A resupply ship gone off schedule, maybe explorers from another human colony. But deep down, he felt the first stirrings of dread. This doesn't make sense. Nothing about this makes sense. As the hours passed, the objects drew nearer. Still no communication. Still no response. Just silent, steady approach. By sunset, the fields glowed golden once more, but the mood was broken. Jake stood in the communications center, eyes locked on the incoming formation. He knew, though he could not yet admit it, that everything was about to change. The first alien ships dropped out of faster-than-light transit just before dawn. The sky darkened as 23 vast vessels blotted out the stars, their hulls a black metal that swallowed the morning light. They descended with silent precision, formation flawless. Amy Carter's voice was tight with panic. "No response to hails. They're not using any frequencies we recognize." Peter Kane burst into the room, flanked by security officers. "Jake, we need to evacuate civilians now. Those ships are powering weapons." Before Jake could respond, the first beam struck. A blue lance of energy cut through the colony's power plant, vaporizing it in a flash. The ground shook. Lights flickered and died. "Emergency protocols." Jake shouted. "Shelters, now." But the sky had already turned into a storm of fire. The alien beams fell like judgment. The school, the hospital, the administrative offices, each targeted with surgical precision. The attack was not random. It was planned to break them. Lisa Morgan was sprinting toward the medical center when it was vaporized in front of her. The blast threw her to the ground. Jake screamed her name, but Peter dragged him toward the emergency bunkers. "They're targeting evacuation routes," Peter shouted as civilians panicked in the streets. Mothers carried screaming children. The elderly stumbled, struggling to keep up. The aliens cut down anyone who dared move in the open. Steve Bailey died in an instant, the agricultural databanks, 15 years of research, burning with him. The first of the alien ships landed in the plaza. Black ramps extended. And then the colonists saw them. Nightmares made flesh. 7 feet tall, for arms tipped with claws, their scaled hides shifting color like oil in water. Eyes cold, intelligent, merciless. Peter and his officers opened fire. Bullets sparked uselessly against glowing personal shields. The aliens returned fire with energy weapons that sliced through steel. Human defenders fell in seconds. There was no battle. Only slaughter. By sunrise, New Terra was gone. The paradise humanity had built for 15 years was reduced to smoking ruin. 50,000 colonists had become less than 3,000 survivors, most herded into captivity, the rest dead among the ashes. Jake Sullivan crouched in the shadows of a drainage tunnel, listening to the chaos above. His world had ended in less than 6 hours. The aliens had made one mistake. They had not killed everyone. And in the dark, among the survivors, the thought began to form, Earth must be warned. The transmission from New Terra was fragmented, distorted by interference. But the images that reached Earth were enough. A black sky torn apart by fire. The colony plaza consumed in light. Screams drowned in static. And then, a final frame, frozen in terror, alien shapes dragging humans into transports under the shadow of towering ships. The feed ended there. For 72 hours, nothing else came. No survivors reported in. No further signals reached the relay stations. Just silence. The United Earth Council convened in emergency session. Leaders from every nation filled the Great Hall in Geneva, their voices hushed and strained. The chamber had witnessed arguments about resources, disputes about colonization rights, endless bureaucratic wrangling. But not this. Never this. The screen behind the council dais displayed the final image from New Terra. For once, no one dared to speak over another. The silence was heavy, oppressive, as if the entire planet held its breath. Dar. Eliza Kwan, Chief of Intelligence, finally broke it. This is no accident. This is no miscommunication. New Terra has been invaded. Systematically destroyed. Her words fell like a sentence. President Adebayo of the African Union leaned forward, eyes sharp. We need to know who they are. What they want. And whether more colonies are at risk. Dr. Kwan adjusted her glasses. We don't know their origin. Their technology is beyond anything we've catalogued. They wiped out a fully functioning colony in hours. New Terra was not a military outpost. It had no strategic value. Which means this attack was not resource-driven. Then what? Someone demanded. She hesitated before answering. It was a message. The chamber rippled with unease. A message, not just to New Terra, but to Earth itself. While politicians debated, others acted. In the depths of Luna's military archives, systems long dormant flickered to life. Encrypted networks reconnected. Subterranean factories began to stir. For half a century, Earth had hidden its preparations, building in silence, beneath the guise of weakness. Humanity remembered its history. For 500,000 years under alien dominion, Earth had bent, suffered, and learned. The yoke of the Serra Empire had left scars that no passage of time could erase. And though that empire had fallen to dust, its cruelty had taught humanity the harshest lesson: survival demands patience. So Earth had waited. Patiently. Quietly. Now, with New Terra burning, the waiting ended. Across the planet, life continued on the surface, but beneath, hidden projects awakened. In the Nevada deserts, vast silos opened to reveal ships the public never knew existed. Beneath the oceans, submersible foundries began forging hulls of black steel. On Mars, the once quiet terraforming stations shifted purpose, their power redirected toward weapons production. Yet outwardly, Earth remained calm. No grand declarations. No dramatic mobilization. Only silence. The galaxy noticed. Reports of New Terra's fall spread quickly beyond human space. Merchant vessels whispered of it in orbital stations. Alien governments demanded answers. Was Earth weak? Would humanity collapse, as so many species had, when confronted by overwhelming force? The Serra remnants, scattered warlords clinging to the bones of their once great empire, watched with hunger. If humanity was fractured, if it could be broken, perhaps they could reclaim their ancient slaves. But Earth gave them nothing. No cries for help. No demands for vengeance. Just silence. And that silence unnerved them more than any threat. Inside Earth's hidden command center, deep beneath the Andes, General Marcus Hale reviewed the intelligence feeds. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight of centuries. They think we are prey, he said to Dr. Kwan. They see the colony as a soft fruit to be plucked. But they do not know the root. Quan nodded slowly. And we will not enlighten them until the moment is right. She brought up a holographic projection, the alien ships over New Terra, their weapons firing. Then she overlaid Earth's secret fleet, long kept off the records. A comparison of scale, of firepower. Even in silence, the message was clear. Among the survivors smuggled back from New Terra by chance and luck, stories spread. Jake Sullivan, battered but alive, limped into a safe house on Ceres Station with a single recording chip. His voice was hoarse, his face lined with grief. They didn't just destroy us. They studied us. They took people alive. Children. Families. They weren't exterminating us. They were collecting us. The council listened in silence. This revelation darkened an already grim picture. The enemy wasn't simply destroying human life. They had a purpose, one no one yet understood. Jake's recording of the attack went viral in underground channels, though Earth tried to keep it contained. The galaxy watched, horrified. But they also whispered. If Earth's colony had been destroyed so completely, what chance did humanity truly have? Weeks passed. The aliens, who called themselves the Serra Dominion, descendants of the old empire, made no further moves. They vanished back into the void, leaving only ruins behind. Many in the galaxy interpreted this as mercy. A warning strike. A reminder that humanity was small, fragile, and at the mercy of greater powers. But Earth knew better. It was not mercy. It was bait. Quietly, Earth began its counterstroke. The first move was psychological. On neutral worlds, whispers began to circulate, of merchant ships lost in the dark, their attackers never identified. Of Dominion patrols vanishing in border sectors. Of stations abandoned overnight, their databanks scrubbed clean. No one could prove it was Earth. No one ever saw human ships. But the rumors grew. And with them, the seed of doubt. Had humanity already retaliated? Was Earth stronger than it seemed? The Dominion, confident in their overwhelming superiority, dismissed these rumors. But others in the galaxy began to reconsider. The memory of the Serra Empire was still fresh, and the possibility of a reborn, vengeful Earth unsettled many. Back on Earth, in the quiet of a subterranean chamber, Dr. Quan and General Hale stood before the council. The enemy believes they struck fear into us, Hale said, his voice low. But fear is not what they created. They created certainty. Quan added, we will not announce our strength. We will not beg for allies. We will not posture. We will simply prepare. And when the time comes, the galaxy will understand the cost of underestimating humanity. The council voted unanimously. The war had already begun, even if no one yet realized it. Far away, in the dark between stars, a Dominion commander reviewed the New Terra operation. His claws tapped against the arm of his chair, satisfaction gleaming in his reptilian eyes. Humanity, he believed, would fall as easily as the others had. But behind him, the stars themselves seemed to watch. And if one listened closely, beyond the static and silence of space, there was the faintest echo. Not a plea. Not a cry. But the quiet breath of something vast and patient, waiting for its moment. Earth was awake. And the galaxy would soon learn what that meant. For months, the galaxy waited for Earth's reaction. The Dominion expected cries for mercy. They expected fractured responses, desperate pleas to neutral powers, perhaps a token counterstrike. That was the way most species fell, loud, panicked, broken. But Earth gave them nothing. No speeches. No declarations. Only silence. And then, slowly, the silence began to change. Merchant guilds reported missing ships in the fringe systems. Patrols vanished without distress calls. Entire Dominion outposts went dark, their databanks erased, their garrisons never found. Whispers spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Some said Earth had unleashed hidden fleets. Others claimed humanity had allied with unknown forces. But the truth was simpler, and far more dangerous. Earth was hunting. The Dominion's fleets were vast, their war machines terrifying. Yet their commanders could not fight what they could not see. Human vessels never appeared on sensors until it was too late. Communications were severed. Ammunition depots detonated without warning. Generals awoke to find their plans leaked, their supply lines severed, their soldiers deserting under the weight of paranoia. The Dominion struck at New Terra with overwhelming force. Humanity replied not with fleets in formation, but with shadows. And shadows are far more frightening than armies. The galaxy began to understand. Humanity was not fighting for expansion. Not for resources. Not even for vengeance. Humanity was fighting with the cold patience of a predator. Species that had once mocked Earth now watched in uneasy silence. The lesson was not lost on them. The Dominion had sought to remind the galaxy of human weakness, and instead, they had reminded everyone of humanity's most dangerous trait, adaptability. Because when humanity is cornered, it does not simply resist. It learns. It becomes something new. And then it strikes where no one is ready. The breaking point came when the Dominion dispatched their Grand Armada, 200 warships, bristling with firepower, sent to scour the Sol system itself. The galaxy held its breath. If Earth was to fall, it would be here. But the Armada never reached Earth. At the edge of the Kuiper Belt, it disappeared. Entirely. No wreckage drifted. No distress signals escaped. Just silence, as if 200 ships had been swallowed whole. For weeks afterward, the Dominion scoured the stars, searching for evidence of what had happened. None was ever found. And the whispers grew louder. Some said Earth had unleashed weapons forbidden since the collapse of the old empires. Others claimed the Armada had fled in terror. But those who knew humanity's history, those who remembered the long night of Sarah rule, understood a harsher truth. Earth had learned from its oppressors. And now it was using those lessons. The Dominion collapsed piece by piece. Not from battlefield defeats, but from something deeper. Fear. Officers refused to patrol human borders. Supply captains abandoned their posts. Colonies surrendered without a fight, begging for mercy that never came. The Dominion, which had once cast itself as heir to empire, disintegrated under the weight of human silence. And still, Earth said nothing. No victory parades. No proclamations. The fleets returned to the void, vanishing as quietly as they had come. The war was over. And yet, no one felt at peace. On Geneva's council floor, General Hale stood before the assembly. His voice was calm, but every syllable carried the gravity of history. The Dominion is gone, he said. But the galaxy is not safer. They feared our weakness. Now they will fear our strength. Either way, humanity stands alone. Dr. Kwan added, softly, we must decide what we become. Predator. Guardian. Or something else entirely. Because the galaxy now believes we are capable of anything. And perhaps. They are right. The chamber fell silent. Not from uncertainty, but from the recognition that humanity had crossed a threshold that could never be undone. Beyond Earth's borders, the galaxy trembled. Species that once dismissed humans now avoided even speaking their name. Merchants altered their routes to steer clear of Sol. Entire governments rewrote their treaties to account for the human factor. Because in the quiet dark, every race understood the same truth. Earth had proven it was not prey. It was a hunter. And hunters never stop watching. But in the deepest corners of space, something else stirred. The Harari, a reclusive species known only for their neutrality, sent a single transmission to Earth. It contained no threats, no demands, only a warning. You have awakened the galaxy's memory of fear. But remember this, the Dominion was not the greatest danger in the void. There are older architects, still waiting. Still watching. And they will not see you as prey or predator. They will see you as a rival. The message ended there. Dr. Kwan studied it for hours. When she finally spoke, it was to no one in particular. We thought the galaxy feared us. But perhaps, it only remembers what comes next. In the silence of deep space, a ruined Dominion cruiser drifted, its hull torn open, its crew long gone. Inside its shattered command deck, a faint signal pulsed, repeating endlessly into the dark. No one listened. No one understood. But far beyond the reach of human sensors, something did. Something old. Something vast. And for the first time in 500,000 years, it stirred.